Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to recap day 2 of the Champions Chess Tour. Let me pretty myself up for a pretty content. Before we go into analysis mode, let's have a look at the current standing of the tournament, because interesting things are already shaping up, and I would like to make sure that I mention them as we progress with the tournament. So the most important thing to mention is that the lead is taken by none other than Grandmaster Quang Liem, and actually I'm going to talk to you about him mostly in today's video. And the other red hot customer at the moment, by the looks of things, is the American Grandmaster Hans Niemann, who is currently 4th with 14 points. Closely followed by Ding Liren and Richard Rapport. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Very curious to see how it's going to proceed from here on out. But now I would like to go back to chess business, because that's what we are here for. On today's menu, going to be 2 games played by the Vietnamese Grandmaster, who is currently leading the field. And there is a theme that actually connects these 2 games. And I apologize if I sound like I am, but honestly, I'm not wanting to plug my courses here. But in King's Safety, there is a chapter in my course which is titled Kasparov's Favorite Attacking Tools. And from White's point of view, I don't know what I have just done now. So from White's point of view, the 2 tools that I'm talking about are the knight that lands on f5 against the king that is castled on the king's side, and the pawn that is pushed up to e5 once again against the king castled against the king's side. And I explain how those pieces become really powerful attackers. What we are going to see in today's games is that Quang is using these particular tools. In fact, one of them, the knight on f4 from Black's point of view, to attack the king's side castled king. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit more in detail about this particular piece and why it is a dangerous attacker when we get to the crucial parts of the game. So both games that we are going to look at today are going to be the Giacopiano, or the Italian defense, which I believe, having gone through all the games insofar, I think is the most popular opening of the tournament insofar. Not a lot to report on in the early stages. This 97 move, though, is something that I need to talk about a little bit, because this is a beginning of the plan that is going to define Black's main strategy, which is to transfer the knight to g6, aiming to plant it on f4. So that is exactly what Quang is doing in this game. By the way, his opponent is English Grandmaster Gawain Jones. Knight d2 takes d5, fighting for the center like a champ. e5 and knight h5. Now both knights are ready to jump into f4, almost certainly guaranteeing that the knight is going to land on that square. And since it has landed, I think this is the right time for me to talk a little bit about why Kasparov really so liked to have that knight on f4 or f5, depending on what color he was playing with, and what's the great benefit. So the story within f4 knight is that it's really in an ultimate location to become a major player in the attack for many reasons. Numero uno. Usually you find that when you are playing against a castled king that has pawns as per highlighted, the middle one is the least secure, because that's usually the one that is only guarded by the king. Now f2 is the same, but usually we have a rook on f1. So that's one thing. Secondarily, which is equally important, the knight on f4 is in the scope of the king in terms of checks. Or I should rather say that the king is in the scope of the knight, as that's a better way to put it. So with other words, I can jump with checks, hurt the king again. So that brings into the equation various sacking ideas, even on g2, and then perhaps taking on h3, and a fair number of combinations of those ideas together. So these 2 things together mean that knights on f4 and f5 usually tend to be very well placed attackers against the king that is castled to the king side. So let's see how the game developed from here. Gawain played bishop e3, f6. Very awesome move, trying to eliminate this pesky e5 pawn and open up the f file, allowing extra supporters in the attack. For example, another motive to note that if takes, then we have got knight takes h3 check ideas, again benefiting from the knight, which is like the octopus knight being able to reach every which direction. And after knight takes, pawn takes, we take on f3 and we win a pawn. So that's part of the plans here. Quang played here knight g3, which was already a very serious mistake, allowing the black attack to entirely unfold by take on e5, and knight h4. Now I would like to stress that here black is already completely winning, and according to the engine, the best move for black is actually knight h4, adding further attackers to the g2 pawn, but also the computer reckons bishop takes h3 is another win. And I wanted to explore this variation a little bit because that to me appears to be a more direct, more aggressive, more smacking type of variation. So I wanted to check it out and I found some absolute beauties. Oh, by the way, also note, just to demonstrate the immense strength of this knight, that knight takes g2 is a concept here as well. Not very perfect compared to the other two, but it does already deal a fair bit of damage after rook takes f3. The queen can't retake because knight check on h4 is gonna mop up in style, and after king takes, bishop takes h3, all of a sudden this king has been cut off from running back home, and despite being a whole rook down, black here has got quite a bit of attack, although according to the engine, if both sides play perfectly, this should fizzle out into the draw. But this is already quite an inspirational variation, an inspiring sequence that would make you go like, I reckon there is more in this position, and you keep looking for further tactical opportunities, and then we come across this idea. Now, initially I thought that the concept with this would be that if they take, we just simply play queen d7, queen takes, and mate on g2. But it's actually quite tricky, because after takes, queen takes, queen d7, we have e6 as a countermeasure, trying to lure the queen onto the e file, so that after bishop takes f4, this is hanging. Now the greatest irony is that even here, black is winning after queen takes h3, because the f4 bishop is hanging. If the bishop goes back, the knight is hanging. It is just an absolute chaos on top of chaos. And if the bishop comes this way, then we have got the amazing knight h4. It feels like black just doesn't run out of attackers, and there is more and more and more coming into the game. Quite amazing. And after knight h4, the sensational bishop takes f2 mate crowns our efforts. So that's nothing to sneeze at, but yeah, this would have been, I think the correct defense here is bishop takes d5 when the queen is going to cover back towards the g2 square. Actually, I will play it out because it's quite interesting. So take, and bishop e3. This is the engine's line, where white is still behind, but at least there is no forced mate on the horizon due to beautiful tactical ideas like knight g5, knight f4, knight g5. You attack my queen, I attack your queen. And I also defended the mate from the queen on d5. This is quite insane. So I'm going to show you the more sane variation after bishop takes h3, which is also quite sensational. Knight takes check, king g2, and queen d7. When I saw this with the engine, I'm like, hang on a tick. What is our threat? And what I tend to do, and I recommend that you do the same in such situations, by the way, if you have the engine on, turn it off. If the engine shows you an idea and comes with an evaluation that seems insane, like here it's minus 4.7, you go like, hold on a tick, I want to figure it out myself. And so I had a look and I'm like, right, okay, I get it. So you want to go check, if take, then check, and then queen h3, and then mate. Fine, I get it. I also get that e6 here is irrelevant, because after queen takes, the bishop has nowhere good to go, given that I have the knight f4, queen h3 threat anyway. So I'm like, okay, if that's the threat, what is the go with rook h1, which appears to be a very logical defending move? And here I found a sensational finish, absolutely marvelous, and a motif I've never seen, not in this particular layout ever before. And it again goes to show the ridiculous power these knights have over the king there. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and for the coup de grace, I think that I'm pronouncing it correctly, knight h4, And rook f2, mate. Matutski, as fellow chess streamer and content creator, the legendary Grandmaster Maurice Ashley would say. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a Matutski and a half. And I reckon if you ever deliver an attack like this, you have done your work in the world of chess. That is madness. Absolute next level. Check it out again. Bishop takes, removing the defender. Know that rook h3 doesn't work because knight f4 check, and then I'm coming with Matutski again. And after fe3, knight h4, rook f2, Matutski is just divine stuff. Absolutely divine. And again, this didn't happen, but you can guarantee that this was also probably on the cards, or at least something similar to this for Le Quang. And considering that these games are played with very limited time, you can't help but marvel at the genius of these guys. Anyway, knight h4 was actually best. And what is a greater testament to how well he's playing than that? Take, take, and here black simply is breaking through with elementary power, once again relying at the immense strength of the knight on f4, which for the record can't be captured because after queen f4, rook f4 works too, by the way, this is hanging, and the two can't be protected at the same time. And that's that. And otherwise, I'm also threatening bishop takes, queen takes, and mate. So, yeah, it is not looking pretty. Queen d2 was played, and the attack broke through with elementary power. Takes, 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 check. And we now pick off f2. Now, interestingly, here again, we have a similar case to what I demonstrated yesterday when white got quite a bit of wood for the queen, which is also the case here. But unlike yesterday's case here, the king is utterly exposed and in fact gets mated very quickly. Check, check. And if the king decides to keep on hugging this knight in order to lose it, which they did in the game, then comes the cold shower after g5. There is no real way to stop the mate on h4. If rook h1, that allows a mate in 3 with rook check, king takes, rook check, and mate. Wow. Wowzers, ladies and gentlemen. Also here is mate, so it doesn't matter where the king goes. And that's exactly how the game ended. Quang actually resigned after g5. A sensational attack conducted by Le Quang, utilizing the power of the f4 knight. And to make matters better, he repeated the same feat against Vidit, and I somewhat regret that I presented these two games in this order because the first one was the better, but even this one is awesome, doing the exact same maneuver as before. And now Vidit plays bishop f1. Now this could be an interesting idea if you consider that he might want to play here g3, bishop g2, entirely nullifying the power of the knight on g6, but probably in broader terms the entire strategy of rerouting the knight here. So that could be quite a valid point, and I think that Le Quang noticed this, and so he adjusted his plan slightly here by taking by immediately counterattacking in the center, which, by the way, funnily enough, brings about one of my biggest chess mantras, that if your opponent abandons the center, your best move is almost certainly to conquer the center, which is exactly what he did. So well done for following chess coach Andra, Mr. GM Le Quang. Takes on d5, slight mistake. Bishop g5 would have been better because in that case a knight would not end up on e4, or a very strong black pawn, as the case will be in this game. So now black has managed to further expand in the center, and now we actually have the other Kasparovian tool. I didn't even notice this. So we will have both the f4 knight and the e4 pawn. Now the reason why Kasparov values this piece in an attack as highly as that pawn as highly as a piece is the fact that often there are sacrificial ideas that include this pawn in terms of it being able to retake on f3, but also the mere fact that it kicked out the defender of the king means that this king is now far more vulnerable to any kind of kingside attack than usual. Knight a3, bishop e6, completing development, take, and here Le Quang went adventurous by taking with the f-pawn. I really like this decision for being really gutsy. Structurally more sound would be, of course, taking towards the center, but he goes, nay, nay, I want to attack. And what is it that he's bringing to the attack? The other Kasparovian tool, the f4 knight. And now almost everybody is attending the party, and you can again see the outline of the attack already taking shape. Queen to g5, bishop h3 threats are already on the board. It's looking really, really dangerous. And in fact, this was Vidit's last chance to realize that, yeah, the house was about to burn down, and play rook e3 to defend some of the sacrificial concepts. Also, against check now, he would have rook g3. Instead, somewhat naively, he went knight d4, trying to bring the knight back, which makes a lot of sense in centralizing it. But it turns out, or rather closes a blind eye to the oncoming attack with knight takes h3. Once again, that's what the well-placed f4 knight can do to a king. And it turns out that there is simply no stopping of the mate. It's almost forced now. Check, and rook takes f2. And amazingly enough, queen g3, queen mate, or queen f4, queen mate, or queen e5, queen mate. Pick what you want. It's just unstoppable. It's quite amazing that, yeah, it looks like a very slow attack that should have some kind of a remedy, and none to be found. Total collapse in the king side. He played rook e2, but that doesn't really change the landscape on the king side. Black will replace one rook with the next, and the threats remain the same. And somehow the black queen just can't get on the... Sorry, the white queen can't get on the other side of the business. And so the best he could do was to sack the queen. Again, this team comes up for the third time, but Quang just converted it with most impressive technique. To be fair though, after queen e5, this is resignable now, because the knight is hanging, and queen e1 check means that the rook is hanging as well, and so he had to give up the knight for the pawn. And this situation just requires very limited commentary, although I would like to pinpoint to you the efficiency with which he converts. So he opens up back rank against any dramas and hints that he wants to create two pass pawns. Activates the queen. Now trades off his only potential weakness. So white has no counterplay. Now activates the king, activates the queen, and now creates a new weakness. No wasted moves, no purposeless mumbo jumbo, just to the point. Very crystal clear play. Pawn up, attacks the weakness. And now white has no defensive measures because both rook b3 and rook f5 have been cut out. Gone. It's just so clean, so purposeful, perfect way to convert a winning endgame, a concept that a lot of lower rated amateur club level players very badly struggle with. So it's well worth actually playing through these games to see how the big guns convert. Queen b4, idea is to put the queen on the dark squares, prepare a check, and allow the pawn to run. Bishop f3, pawn to run. We want a queen, so there is no mucking around. We just do what we need to do. King g5, now the king is threatening to penetrate on both of these squares. So that's something white needs to look out for. Queen c3, just to remove the queen from rook e4. Rook e4, king f5. Another threat added, g5, g4. h4 was played, g5, creating two more passes. Take, take, and now comes the final phase. The b pawn runs, the g pawn runs. And that's when white has had enough and decided to resign. G4 next is going to wreck the defense, and so white decided to give up. So this is where we are at, ladies and gentlemen, after 2 days of playing. Of course, I had to omit a lot of things that would be worthy of recapping, but I got inspired by yesterday's video and the positive feedback, so I'm trying to keep on adding that educational spin to my selection. So I try to pick things from which we can learn and take away something. And on that note, I'm going to call it a day. Once again, I would really like to ask you to comment, to engage, to like, to sub, to spread the word. And yeah, we'll keep at it. So I will see you with the next video tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.